Hey guys, and welcome back. Gonna do a little comparison video today. Gonna take a look at the brand new Juggernaut Wave Wolverine in the brown and yellow versus the 2013 Hit Monkey Wave X-Force Wolverine. So what I wanted to do here is just take a look at which one ends up being the definitive Wolverine. A lot of people are loving the new one, as am I, but the X-Force one was one of the only figures I had from the Marvel Legends for years. Hadn't really paid attention to the Marvel Legends too much, but when I had heard about that one, I went out and picked him up. And him and one of the other Spider-Mans was pretty much the only Marvel Legends I had, so he was a good figure. So let's take a look at the height. Obviously, the new Wolverine is shorter. We'll kind of judge on if he's too short or if he's just right. Do that a little later. But as you can see, the X-Force Wolverine is taller. Looking at the arms, the muscularity on the new one, I think, is a little overdone. A little too much bicep on the upper arm. I think it's just too large, whereas the X-Force one has about just the right amount, and it looks a little bit more natural to me. This almost looks like synthol abuse, so I don't like that too much. As far as the arms are concerned, if you take a closer look, the X-Force Wolverine also has hair painted on the upper forearm only, not on the upper arm itself. So I don't know why they didn't go all the way, but at least they did add that particular detail. Versus we got a completely hairless new version as far as body hair goes. And I think that's a trademark for Wolverine. I think that was a missed opportunity. Alright, so let's talk claws. The claws themselves between the two figures are very similar. The design on them are pretty much the same. However, the plastic used and also the angle of the claws are slightly different. On the newer one, we get a painted detail for where the claws extend from, which is nice, but it just highlights the fact that the claws themselves are just light gray plastic. So that's not too great. Versus taking a look at the older X-Force one, there is no detail where it comes out. It comes straight out of the hands, which is a little weird, but it kind of works, and it is in a darker gray. But the claws seem to have a little bit more of an angle also right at the tip versus the newer one. And they seem a little thinner too, but that might just be my eye. I don't know what you think. So as far as claws go, it's pretty evenly matched. I do think the darker gray that they used for the X-Force one works a little better because the newer one is such a light gray, it almost looks white. And of course, with that silver detail on the hand, it just highlights how off it really is. Okay, taking a look at the head sculpts, both have kind of a neutral expression. The X-Force one has a slight bit more of a frown going on, as you can see at the lines on the side of his mouth, versus all of the personality for the newer one really comes in with the eyes. They do look angrier, but his mouth expression doesn't really reflect that. So head shape and mask design, I would have to give it to the Juggernaut Wave version because I do like the way the ears flare out further, but that does come down to the design choice. Another thing that's nice on the actual X-Force one is he does have some sculpting in his forehead to show a frowning effect. And of course, X-Force has red eyes, and the Juggernaut Wave version has silver. Both work perfectly well and are comic accurate, even though Wolverine's really depicted with white eyes in the comic books. But out of the two heads, I'm going to call that one a draw. Okay, so let's quickly talk about paint. Both figures have distinct costumes, but some interesting details for the X-Force version. Obviously, we got the painted arms with the arm hair, is what I'm getting at, which the Juggernaut Wave version doesn't have. The other thing to note is the X-Force figure has shading throughout the body. It has the blue highlight for the black, versus the classic yellow and brown has no shading whatsoever. But another thing to talk about in regards to paint is how clean the application is. So between the two, you got the classic, which has very clean paint. Lines are sharp on the chest, on the arms. There's really no slop even on the boots, from the brown to the black. And looking at the back of the figure, also the brown pattern, everything, even in the joints, everything is really very clean. Eyes, face paint, so super clean. Versus the X-Force version has a lot more paint application with the hair, with the shading, but the application isn't as good. You notice, depending on how you articulate the figure, you get a little scuffing on the paint, so paint wear. Also, the leg paint is very rough and crooked. I've seen multiple reviews and they're pretty much all the same. That is just atrocious on the application there. It really looks very, very poor. It's a freehand effort, it looks like, from a kid. So not very good on the cleanness. More paint application versus less, but a cleaner look. You can decide on that. Okay, one other thing here, we got the accessories for the figures. With the Juggernaut Wave Wolverine, we did get a pair of unpopped claw hands, which is nice addition, so you don't have to keep pulling them in and out to change the look. Definitely a bonus there. You did get a Build-A-Figure piece for the Juggernaut. And with the X-Force version, you got Bupkis. Next category is articulation. They're pretty much the same. There's two advantages that the newer version, brown and yellow version, does beat the X-Force version. That is the ab crunch. So on that version, you could only crunch them forward that much and back barely at all. Versus with the new version, obviously you see you get 2 crunches forward, which is tremendous, and you do get a little bit more back. The other benefit, both have butterfly joints, just one is executed better, where you get more forward motion, versus this one you don't get quite as much. Everything else is pretty much on par with each other. Alright, so taking a look at the physique of each figure, the X-Force Wolverine has the old Toy Biz chest design. Works pretty good for Wolverine. It does have the hunch. It definitely looks like a Wolverine-esque body. The only real major difference in anatomy comes into how long the legs are compared to the torso. because when you look at them, obviously the Juggernaut Wave version is shorter, but when you bring the belts into alignment, the actual torsos are pretty much the same. It really comes into the length of the legs that makes the difference in the height. You'll also notice with the arms itself, the newer one has shorter, stubbier arms to also reflect that, which is good. I think that was a good design. But the physique on both of them are different. So with the newer one, you've got the much better ab crunch and then waist twist, which affords for a really nice looking torso. You really can see the muscularity and the ribs. The sculpting looks really good on that. Another big bonus is the butterfly joint. It brings the arm forward and back, and it's completely enclosed. If you look at the X-Force version, when you have the arms pulled back, you have this big hole you can see right through the chest, which looks awful. Going down into the legs themselves, both look good, but the newer design has a little bit beefier. And the other thing that's nice too with the torsos on them is the stocky look is really captured well on the Juggernaut Wave version. He's broad and he's wide. He doesn't have a very big Y shape to him. Versus this one doesn't have as natural because of the way it breaks. It doesn't have the same ab crunch. It's got this crunch that is broken all the way across, which also acts as a twist. But with this waist twist, it's kind of a wasted feature. So definitely a better design on the Juggernaut. So with the legs, and then of course there's two different boot styles. That just comes down to the actual design of the costume. But as far as full physique, even though I prefer the upper arms on the X-Force, I really do got to give it to the Juggernaut Wave. Alright, so now for the size comparison. Which Wolverine is the right height? Of course, with the comics, it varies a little bit, but mainly Wolverine in the comics is a runt. 5'3", 5'2", really short guy. Of course, movie version of him with Hugh Jackman being about 6'2". It's a whole different story, but we're focusing on the comics. So with that in mind, Deadpool is 6'2", so that kind of makes the X-Force Wolverine look like he's about 5'7". So he is short. I don't think he is short enough. Versus the Juggernaut Wave version, looks like he's almost a foot shorter, which is about accurate. So I think they really did nail the proper proportions for Wolverine with this new brown and yellow costume version. Alright, so in the end, which is the better Wolverine? So if you were keeping tally, we said that the torso and body is definitely a better design for the Juggernaut Wave Wolverine. More natural looking physique. Arms go to the X-Force version for a little bit more natural proportion, not quite as bulky and ridiculously sized bicep, and also the addition of the arm hair does edge out the X-Force version. Claws were pretty much neutral, but because of the painted detail on the hand for the claws where they pop, the X-Force one just looks a little better because the detail isn't there to emphasize how plasticky the claws are, and they molded them in a darker, more metallic looking, so the claws go to X-Force. So height, obviously it's Juggernaut. Physique, it's Juggernaut. Arms, it's X-Force. Claws, it's X-Force. Head sculpts were pretty much on par. So which one is the better Wolverine? I'd still have to say it's the Juggernaut wave. It really comes down to personal preference, but the way that they designed the butterfly joint more naturally and costume design, I do prefer the brown and yellow. That's just me. You might differ, but either way, you can't go wrong with either Wolverine, and there's many others to choose from, but these are two of the best from Marvel Legends from Hasbro. So I thought it was cool to take a look at that. If you guys enjoyed it, I appreciate a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed already, please do. And until next time.